Throughout most of the latter half of the 20th century, it was widely believed that the goal of the for-profit company should be shareholder wealth maximization. It was believed that by pursuing this goal, for-profit companies would provide the maximum value to society. But value was narrowly defined as financial value for the company's shareholders and often did not benefit other stakeholders. I'm Frank Werner, Associate Professor of Finance at Fordham University in New York City. In our last video, we looked at how the goal of the for-profit company evolved from the Industrial Revolution to the 20th century. In this video, we will continue our exploration of the goal of the for-profit company, how it has evolved since then, and how it may continue to evolve in the future. It was only toward the end of the 20th century that the flaws in shareholder wealth maximization became widely apparent. Some of the shortcomings dealt with outcomes for society, rising income inequality, the creation and sale of harmful products and services, the lack of motivation to contribute to social welfare. Other shortcomings were visible within companies. For example, a lack of an ethical compass, placing profitability above integrity, and resentment from employees who saw that it was senior executives and not all employees who benefited from stock price-related compensation and bonuses. But what really changed our understanding of the goal of for-profit companies was global warming. For millennia, the average temperature of the Earth, from poles to the equator, day and night, summer and winter, was essentially unchanged. But in the 1970s, the Earth's average temperature began to rise above its historical level, and it kept rising, and kept rising. As scientists studied this phenomenon, it became clear that the primary culprit was the increasing amount of certain gases in the atmosphere, mostly carbon dioxide, that trap heat from the sun, much like a glass greenhouse creates a hot environment in which to grow plants. It also became clear that the primary source of these greenhouse gases was the combustion of fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas. Now, if all that was happening was that the Earth was getting a little hotter, we probably wouldn't be very concerned. But global warming is causing changes to the Earth that are already having devastating consequences. One very visible effect is the increased frequency of extreme weather events, hurricanes, typhoons, tornadoes, droughts, floods, wildfires that are destroying lives and property. Another is the melting polar ice caps and the thermal expansion of ocean waters that are leading to rising sea levels, which threaten to inundate populated coastal areas and displace hundreds of millions of people. Still another is the extinction of species whose habitats and food chains have been disrupted. There are many more. But what does this have to do with the financial goal of for-profit companies? Well, recall that at the time of the Industrial Revolution, for-profit companies were tiny, with little if any impact on the environment or on society as a whole. But now that has all changed. The largest companies today have revenues that exceed the gross domestic product of many nations and have considerable impact on the environment and the societies in which they operate. The emergence of a global middle class, a good thing in that so many people worldwide have escaped poverty, has significantly increased the demand for energy, and with it, the burning of the fossil fuels that emit greenhouse gases. Bottom line, it is the activities of for-profit companies and the use of the products they make that are the most significant sources of greenhouse gases. Many analysts believe that if nothing changes, even more species will be threatened, including we humans. Quite a few consumers believe the same thing. So today, companies big and small are responding. Products are being redesigned to be more eco-friendly, both in production and use, to use less energy, generate less waste, and be easier to recycle. Products with any hint of social injustice are being repackaged or rebranded. Every day, more and more for-profit companies are recognizing that they need to add environmental and social goals to their traditional finance goal if they are to meet the changing demands of their customers. University graduates increasingly want to work for enlightened companies whose culture is consistent with their beliefs. Companies are finding that when they embrace environmental and social goals, it is far easier to attract and retain talented employees. Investors, both professional and individual, have discovered that companies that integrate environmental and social goals with their financial goal actually perform better financially than those that do not. Within the past few years, companies have begun to report their environmental and social performance along with their financial results, a data set popularly called ESG, Environmental, Social, and Governance. And there's growing evidence that including ESG factors in choosing investments leads to superior returns. Here's a graph showing the rate of return from two United States stock market indexes, the KLD 400, an index of 400 companies pursuing ESG goals, and the S&P 500, an index of the largest companies in the United States and a commonly used benchmark for investment returns. Notice that the KLD 400 has generated a higher rate of return for investors than the S&P 500 every year since its creation in the early 1990s. In August 2019, the Business Roundtable, an association of chief executive officers of major United States businesses, released a statement on the purpose of a corporation, recognizing the need to serve all stakeholders and rejecting the belief that shareholders come first and therefore shareholder wealth maximization should be the goal of their companies. The statement was signed by 181 CEOs from the largest United States corporations. Here's the key part. Since 1978, Business Roundtable has periodically issued principles of corporate governance that include language on the purpose of a corporation. Each version of the document issued since 1997 has stated that corporations exist principally to serve their shareholders. It has become clear that this language on corporate purpose does not accurately describe the ways in which we and our fellow CEOs endeavor every day to create value for all our stakeholders, whose long-term interests are inseparable. With today's announcement, the new statement supersedes previous statements and outlines a modern standard for corporate responsibility. Each of our stakeholders is essential. We commit to deliver value to all of them for the future success of our companies, our communities, and our country. So, where are we today? There are still many for-profit companies that pursue shareholder wealth maximization as their only goal, but a growing number are looking for ways to broaden their goals to include positive environmental and social outcomes. Here's one way to look at it. The goals of most societies around the world can be grouped into three broad categories: economic, environmental, and social. The economic goal is a robust economy providing jobs, incomes, and goods and services that meet people's needs. The environmental goal is a clean, healthy environment where all species can flourish. The social goal is to eliminate injustices, honor traditional cultures, and bring the poor and marginalized into the mainstream. The simultaneous pursuit of economic success, environmental preservation, and social justice and inclusion is often referred to as global sustainability, and is illustrated schematically in this Venn diagram, which you've already seen in our first video. So, what's next? I think societies all around the world will continue to demand more from for-profit companies, and companies will respond. For-profit companies are on a journey, from a focus only on financial results for shareholders to a broader focus that includes and integrates environmental and social goals. This graphic, developed by Bill Reed of the consulting firm Regenesis, summarizes one useful way to visualize this journey. On the left is where for-profit companies are coming from, identified as conventional. Many companies have reached the next stage, identified as green, in which they are doing less harm. In the middle of the diagram is sustainable, the steady state where damage to the environment and to society is balanced out by offsetting improvements. But the future is on the right-hand side of the figure, where businesses actively heal the earth, first by becoming restorative, and eventually becoming regenerative, actively enhancing the planet and the well-being of all who live on it. So, as I see it, the goal of the for-profit company has evolved, and will continue to evolve, as it has done ever since the days of Adam Smith, as we learn more about how these companies can provide value in many forms to us all, and what value creation can truly be.